that you guys do.
Well,
I was telling Sarah, you guys are, of all the people who send review copies, and for especially what our show does, we just give you so many shout-outs because you guys do
Thank you.
so much incredible
Seriously,
work.
in the 5 years, one of the things that I wasn't able to say, there's so many things I'd love to be able to say, is the support from press, fans.
Yeah.
Everything is just like that's how we've got to 5 years. I mean, it isn't just our team here. I mean, yes, it is our dedication and our love for the product or whatever like that. But if we didn't speak to fans or press or in a way that you guys understood, like, look, we're one and the same here, then I don't think we would have had the right, like, people can smell fakes. And I feel like we're not. Well, we aren't.
I think you grabbed my attention specifically with your constant appearances on Shockwaves and Killer POV and stuff.
Love. Well, and those guys are great. Again, they're fans. You can tell they are. And so 5 years ago when we started Scream Factory, I knew to go grassroots and to jump in with those people first because they're influencers and they know what they're doing and they know horror. And so when they realized we were the real deal, it's just been a good relationship back and forth.
Absolutely. So first of all, let's introduce you to the listeners. So I'm speaking to Jeff from Scream Factory, and obviously if you're listening to Horror Movie Night, you know who Scream Factory is. We've watched a decent chunk of their movies, and obviously as a comedy podcast talking about bad horror, we haven't always been the kindest to all of their movies, but
it's all right.
But their releases have always been top-notch and fantastic, and that's why we love them so much. The fact that you guys try to give so much love and attention to films that sometimes don't necessarily deserve the love and attention.
Very many of them, actually. It's funny when, I take a movie like, Windows, who's no one's ever even heard of, and we have like 3 interviews and trailers and TV spots. We're like, what do you do here? But, we, in the 300 plus titles that we have released, and we look back at them, yes, the big ones, Return of the Living Dead, Army of Darkness, The Thing, naturally, you're going to want to put as many bells and whistles as you can on them because those are your best sellers and those have their biggest fans. But we like to give love to the movies that kind of went under the radar that still have fans, like Session 9, like, The Sentinel. There's so many of them. But, yes, we have... But we're also realistic, and we know when some movies are just simply bad movies. And guess what? We embrace them. We embrace that the car is silly.
Yeah,
we embrace
which is why horror fans appreciate it.
Yeah,
we like those bad movies too.
Of course.
I have to say, one thing that jumped out at me. We just left the Shout and Scream Factory panel. How badly did you fight for Matinee and Mac and Me before Shout got it instead of Scream? Because both of those seem like they would be Scream Factory releases in my mind.
So that's a very good question. So Mac and Me, actually, believe it or not, we did never consider to be in the Scream line. And the only reason is, although that we've put a lot of sci-fi into the Scream line, like Escape from New York and Mad Max and Rotor and a whole bunch of other things, Mac and Me was a little too kid-friendly, and...
So you're not going to put out Nuki or anything?
No, but what's really funny is that we did put out Garbage Pail Kids all those years ago, which was kind of like... But that was a more viscerally gross movie. It's a really disgusting movie. So Mac and Me went there. Now, Matinee did do what we call a line straddle, and it was debated about quite hotly, believe it or not, in the office, of whether or not it should go into Shout Select or Scream. And ultimately, it got tipped into the Shout Select line, which is fine. It's still coming out. You know what I mean?
And that's all that matters.
It's
the
still
DVD I bought was like $25 used.
Yeah,
so having a good, and there's no special features. There's not even a trailer.
Joe, we have a relationship with Joe Dante, and we're gonna do everything that we can with that. Again, it just happens to be in the Shout Select line, and there's gonna be illustrated art on it, and whatever. But it did tiptoe, and sometimes we have those titles. That Buckaroo Banzai last year was another one that could have gone into Scream, but it went into Shout Select. Or we have a couple of other ones on the horizon where it's like, well, does this go in here or that? We do have those every now and then, and I look at it like this: who cares? They're coming out.
Exactly. So you had mentioned in the panel that the sales from your 5-year blowout have been huge. Now I've heard you were on my old podcast last year, and I've heard you talk about it on Shock Treatment or Shockwaves. That there's films that sometimes you had high expectations for, and they were not quite as successful as you had hoped.
Yep.
Were there any titles that actually jumped that barrier from being unsuccessful into a success because of these sales, or?
No, but what we did learn in that sale completely is that there are certain titles that I would like to call, they're sort of like fringe titles.
Yeah.
So, a person like, we announced The Thing or Carrie or Child's Play. Those are big titles and people want those on day one.
Yeah.
And that's because they're huge fans of those films. Then you have other films, Tales from the Hood, Serial Mom, some ones that are a little less but still have their fan following. People still want it. But then you'll have other titles that sort of go down third or fourth or fifth where it's like, well, I am interested in the legacy, but, or I am, and look, people only have a certain amount of money in their pockets.
Exactly.
Fans only have a certain amount of money. Every month they have to say, wow, all of these companies are putting out Blu-ray releases. Which ones am I going to choose? So what we learned from the sale is that a lot of those sort of CD titles really race to the type when they're at a certain price range. There are people that will buy them at the higher price, and then there are people that will wait, and that's okay. We're still selling them, but I wouldn't say that someone, there was enough units that moved that it can say, oh my God, this is a gigantic success. But we did see across the board, like titles that hadn't sold for years that were suddenly coming up. And we ended up having to make more product because we were back ordered.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 words, Poughkeepsie tapes.
Oh my God. Okay, so, what can I say about that? Cliff McMillan.
I screamed holy shit at my desk
Yeah,
at
a lot
work
of
when I
people
saw
did.
that.
Lots of people did. Cliff McMillan is responsible for that. He's the other half of Scream Factory and does the acquisitions and stuff. And, we have a relationship with MGM, and this was a title that's notorious. It was supposed to come out in theaters, and then it got dropped, and no one knew. Yeah, on demand for a minute, and got pulled, and nobody knew quite why this movie kind of disappeared and never came out. And we were able to make an agreement with this film and MGM, and boom, it's coming out. And it will have some extras. Will it be able to tell the whole story of what happened with it? I don't know yet.
You're still working on it.
We're still working on it. But we know from the pre-orders and from the excitement on the Scream Factory page, my God, when I announced it, that thing got 200,000 views and major engagement. So,
amazing.
yeah, it was kind of like a little surprise. We didn't quite... Cliff knew, I didn't quite know that there was this much of a back build for it. So, yeah.
I literally thought it would never happen.
Yeah.
So real quickly, let's run down. I'm going to just run down what's coming out.
Sure.
I typed them all up, and if I miss any, let me know.
Sure.
But we got Attack of the Puppet People, which is a really weird choice, but whatever.
That's okay. You know what? We admit some of these choices are weird, but they also ended up being in the schedule. Look, I wanted to give, instead of just giving 5 or 6 big titles, which is like Cyborg and Misery and all the other ones they made, The Stranger, whatever. We still have a fan base that loves the stuff that's never come out on Blu-ray before, or in case of Eye of the Cat, it's never even come out.
Never even heard of that one.
Exactly. Honestly, neither had I. So I was like, this is kind of cool. I'm really interested in seeing this 1969 weird, trippy movie.
Sequels is pretty.
Yeah,
But the thing that I was shocked was there was I felt like there was crickets to American Gothic, and I love that movie.
So you know what's really funny? There might be crickets in there, but I've seen over the years that be requested quite a bit
It's a great movie.
So, and I thought that title was with a studio we couldn't license from. It ended up being at a studio that we could, and somehow we were able to get it. And I was like, great, let's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like one of those ones I just stumbled on,
weird.
and it's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
All right.
Very bizarre. But
so I know that time's limited. I know that you need to get back to Los Angeles. I'm going to do what I'm sure every person does and just throw out 3 titles. I know that you can't say yes or no.
That's all right.
But, if it's a definite, this is probably never ever happening. Arena, Alligator, and The Last Shark.
So, Arena, we would love to put out, because we put it out as a 4-pack on a DVD, sort of a budget play thing a while ago. We don't have usable film elements to make it an HD transfer.
Gotcha.
That's why that one is sort of at a standstill. And unfortunately, what some people may not realize is, God, with these older films, you'd be shocked of how things were not kept. Things were thrown in the trash. Negatives are lost, and positives are lost. The things that
films sometimes.
Yeah, it's depressing. Like, we'd love to get to Blood Beach. We hear that there's no elements out there. I mean, it's just things like that. Alligator. So Alligator is one of my all-time favorite films. Horror films is probably my top 10. And if anybody wants it, it would be me. We don't have a path to it at this time. Doesn't mean that
you're going to keep fighting for that.
Yeah,
one for
that's one. That one is one that we really want. I really want. Yes. And then the other one was
the Last Shark.
I know
you couldn't do Cruel Jaws, but like
Last Shark is never going to happen because it was sued from Universal at the time. And
Universal went over. They need the money.
Well, listen. For that same token, we'd love to get Abby, the Exorcist ripoff from the '70s, that got sued for being a Exorcist ripoff. When those movies get piled in like that, legal doesn't want to touch it. They don't want to touch it, and it puts us at risk. Sadly,
Fair
because
enough.
it's a sad.
It's amazing.
Oh well, of course. You have sharks that make surfboards explode, and and just
purposely you're just killing for the sake of killing. They're suffocating scuba divers.
Yeah, it's very funny.
We watched it we did our big 2-year anniversary live Twitch. We were on Twitch and we were screening weird movies. And, our fans started calling the shark the fruit punch shark. Because its mouth is just so absurdly red and open.
No, it's ridiculous.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff.
Oh, no,
thank you for everything
guys.
that you do. I'd like to campaign, if God forbid you ever get Alligator, I would love to be on that commentary, but I'm sure there's about 1 million other people that are asking for that one too.
I believe me, I would want to be on the commentary for Alligator.
Just fill a whole theater.
Alligator
is a
great
commentary.
movie. I hope we can get it one of these days. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.